Welcome to Evolve, Reinventing Leadership, Building Freedom Cultures, with thought leader and award-winning author Yvette Bethel. This podcast provides you with insights and ideas you can use to reinvent your culture through trust and the principles of interconnectivity, flow, and balance. At a time when the world is rewriting the rules of work, traditional leadership practices are not enough. It's time to perceive persistent challenges through a new lens. It's time to evolve.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again. This is your host, Yvette Bethel, and the topic for this episode of Evolve is trust in the military. We have with us business owner and podcaster, Michael Dillard. Michael is a retired U.S. Navy Submarines Chief Petty Officer. Or he was. Well, yeah, he's retired. He's a master trainer, specialist, and NFPA certified electrical safety compliance professional with over 20 years of military service. He's highly skilled in negotiation, quality assurance, project management, course development, contract administration, and more. With over 13 post-naval years of expertise in the electrical facility maintenance industry, Michael is a 7-time winner of the prestigious TEGG Is that how you say it? The TEG Diamond. You get that Diamond Award, an international award recognizing the top 1% of over 1,200 electrical consultants in the TEG ABM Global Network. So, hello, Michael, and welcome to Evolve.
Aloha, Yvette.
Aloha.
How you doing?
Yeah, you're in Hawaii. Yeah, it's
Yes.
good to have you. So,
It's raining in Hawaii right now, but still beautiful.
yeah. Well, tell us a bit about the military. You spent some time there before you started your business of 13 years. And
Yes.
I would love for you to share with our audience, how you ended up there and
hmm
you left, how you kept current with what's going on in the military.
Got it. As ridiculous as this sounds, the reason I ended up in the military was because International House of Pancakes had an all-you-can-eat seafood combo. Again, I know that sounds ridiculous, but the backstory is that I was in I was in gifted and talented classes, and our calculus teacher in ah, I guess that would have been the 11th grade. He said, "I'm going to treat you like college students," because he was also a professor at Rutgers University. So he said, "If you want to come in my class, come to my class. If you don't, you don't. All I ask is if you cut class, bring me some food back." So me and my friends want to look cool, so we're like, "Hey, we're the nerds. We'll cut class during gym, and we'll get some food from IHOP, and then bring it back and eat it in his class." And so the only obstacle was say, well, how are we going to get out to the parking lot? And so the military entrance test, ASVAB, was being given on that day. So I'm like, hey, let's take the ASVAB test. We'll just Christmas tree it, we'll just make a bunch of circles and just once we're finished, we'll run out, jump in the car and go to get the food and come back. So once I
What?
did that, of course, the military started knocking on my door, right? And I was going to join the Air Force, and then my recruiter went on vacation, and the Navy nuclear program kind of popped up on my radar, and I went with the Navy instead. So
Mm.
that's how I ended up in the Navy. And to the second part of your question, how I stay relevant. Well, I'm still in Hawaii, and you may not notice because I don't know that you've ever been to Hawaii, but it is full of military. It's
Yeah.
everywhere you go. And so as a veteran, I get all my health care and everything done through the VA. I have plenty of friends at my church VA, so I'm aware of what's still going on. Because people, they complain and they kind of gripe, and then I see also what's going on in the news and whatever. So I kind of see how things have changed from Cold War era when I joined in 1987 to, you know, we'll just say post-COVID era. So there's been tremendous changes. So yeah, I'm still abreast of what's going on.
Ah, so from your perspective, what's the importance of trust in the military? Why is this important even now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, honestly, like the whole the whole concept of the military and the way that they train us from inception, which would be boot camp, to even after you get out and you retire, everything is based on trust. So, we have what we call company commanders. In the Marines, they might call them a drill sergeant or something like that. These are the people that typically see on TV yelling at people,
Mm.
making you do push-ups and stuff like that. So in boot camp, Navy boot camp, where I went, everything from the very first day teaches you about trusting the person to the left or to the right of you, the people in your company. Like you have to learn to depend upon these people. It also teaches you to trust in your superiors. So that would be the company commanders. But that's all to get you ready to go out to the fleet to trust your coworkers in different departments and your chief petty officers and your officers above you, that they're going to make the right call and have your back. So trust is super important. And it's still important because the military is still the military. Usually national security is hanging in the balance. People's lives are hanging in the balance. So it's super important to be able to trust that your superiors are actually, they have just reasons to send you on certain missions, and that they care about you, and you can trust them. Their motives are right. Their characters are right. So very
So,
important.
so in the military, then it sounds like uh, trust equates to being able to depend on. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And
One
how
1000%.
and how is that different than trust in a for-profit organization? You've
Wow.
done both.
Yeah, yeah, great question. So again, so for the military, like I said, trust usually involves at the most simplistic, basic level. It's your life. I was a submarine guy. So if you're underwater at 800 plus feet or whatnot, and you're in enemy territories, you are trusting that someone is not going to be up playing a radio or, taking a hammer and doing some work and banging on stuff. So you're dead. Whereas in the corporate sense, when I see trust, and now after having done the corporate side for 13 years, which is quite a night and day experience, uh, trust seems to be something that the corporations kind of bandy about. It's always like a nice buzzword, but my position for what I do is kind of unique. So I'm boots on the ground with the maintenance staff, the people that are actually doing the work. But then I'm also the person that's talking to the C-suite people on, liability and why they need to do these things and whatnot. And so I get to hear from the worker bees, so to speak, how they don't trust the people above them because they say one thing, but they constantly do another. They don't keep their words. And so to me, it seems like on the corporate sense, trust it's a nice concept, uh, but it's something that more or less goes by the wayside for the dollar, you
Mm.
know,
So it's
totally
kind
different.
of it's more expendable. Uh, they can do it or not, but in the
Right.
military, you have to. You
You
have
have
because it's
to.
life and death.
Right. And I don't want to like steal thunder from some of your questions. So I'll just wait as you ask me questions. And if I don't hear something come, because I have a comment, but if it was going to like replace a question you was going to ask me, maybe I should just wait to say it then.
Go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's be
Okay.
natural.
So, so what I see today, I'll just call it post-COVID, the post-COVID era, right? Um, what is it? It's what is it? Internet globalization. I think that was the term I learned in graduate school. So, due to the internet, like in the Cold War era, right? You were given orders by your superiors. You just trusted that they had your best interests at heart and that everything was good. That they were upstanding people. Now they may not have been, but we didn't have real time live access to see these people's lives. when stuff goes awry in their life and they get in trouble and whatnot. Whereas now there's so much distrust, and not just the Navy, every branch of the service, because it's well known, right? People have access through the internet to see what their chief commander in chief is doing, president, all the way down through the top military ranks and so on and so forth. So there's so much distrust and dissension. People don't really know nowadays why they're fighting. Can they even trust the mission that they're going on, and why should they? Because, well, the people that are running this are suspect and not worthy of trust. So I think that's kind of where we are right now.
Wow, that complicates things because in the military, in running a mission, obviously people's lives are at stake. So how does that play out, in that context where they're going out there, they're not trusting that maybe even that the mission is something that's a sound or appropriate mission. How does that play out in their reality with such high risks and stakes?
Well, I can tell you, even this is from experience. So even before I did retire from the military, I remember one of our last missions. Uh, you know, the intel comes in and it goes to what we call the radio man. They get that and they're supposed to give it to the captain, the commanding officer. However, people are people and they're gonna talk. And especially in an environment like a submarine, you may have only maybe 150 people if you have some guests riding you, but if not, maybe like 135 people. So it's kind of like a family. It's 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 a trust. How would you say, like it's an ecosystem of
Ecosystem.
trust,
Yeah.
right, on a submarine, right? Um, but I remember one of the last missions we had, the radio men were telling us that because they were friends of ours, and they're like, why is this mission coming from the UN, from the United Nations? Like basically, we're starting to go on missions that the UN is in control of, and we don't even know why we're going. So I know for those of us that knew, it was actually very troubling and it was stressful because we didn't know where we were going until we got there. We didn't know why we were doing it, and also why the change in the command. Because usually we got our orders from the squadron. Our squadron commander tells us that came down from the admiral, but the missions changed, and then the UN started running, calling a shot. I'm not saying they do that for every mission, but a couple of the missions I went on before I got out, they were in charge, and we were very stressed out about it.
Mm.
But you said, how does this play out? Well, you're military, so you're trained to do a job. You train to do it basically in your sleep. So that way, if you're in danger of dying, like you will complete the mission. So you just do the job stressed and you get home and it's like, wow, I'm so glad we made it back. Like, okay, so
But,
and that was at least 13 years ago. And so, that has only amped up as far as the types of missions and what we're doing and how they're joint missions. And it's just I would imagine today's sailor or today's military person, that's something that they constantly have to deal with. It's a constant erosion of trust, and there's got to be a low grade stress. Now let's talk about people that are actually in the battlefield. I'm a submariner. So at the most, we're gonna launch missiles or we're gonna shoot torpedoes. But for the folks that are actually in combat. There's bullets whizzing by their head. For those folks to constantly have to struggle with, why am I even here? Why would they send us to do this particular mission, right? And they're really looking kind of sideways at the government and all the officials above them. So that can cause you to hesitate.
mhm,
If you thoroughly believe wholeheartedly in the mission at hand and that is just, it's righteous, right? Okay, they're gonna salute, they're gonna execute. That's how we do it. But if you're struggling with it, that moment's bit of hesitation could get you killed because you don't trust. You think there's no integrity with your superiors. They tell you to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe they really were telling you the right thing to do, but if you don't trust that, it could cost you your life or the lives of the people on your team, right?
mhm.
Yeah, it's
So what
very.
I'm hearing, there's trust at the individual relational level, there's trust at the squadron level, and then there's trust beyond that. The people it's trust or distrust in the people that make the decisions and call the shots. So you have
Yes.
all these layers that you're describing of trust or distrust, and that individual military person is, kind of, if they're not in a state of trust and comfort, and you called it dependability
Yes.
is something. If they're not in that state, then what are some of the, you know, what are some of the outcomes of that level of stress, especially if it's prolonged? What happens in the military?
Wow. Definitely a great question. Uh, Depression rates,
Mm,
suicide, alcoholism, increased divorce rates. Let's talk about that. So, when I was in the military, I was a married military person for a good portion of my career. And when you go out to sea, I mean, it's no secret that people commit, affairs, they have extramarital affairs and stuff like that. But it was very challenging because you see your leadership is doing a lot of the leadership, not all of them. You go out in town and you see the leaders doing it's like, hey, wait a minute. Why is senior chief so and so? Why is commander blah 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 with that's not his wife, so that's one of the things that plays out. People are very stressed. Um, there's going to be probably more adulterous relationships,
hmm.
spending. If there's a vice to be had, the vice is going to come. It's going to come into play.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is your host, Yvette Bethel, and we will be right back after this message.
Organizational Soul is a mission driven organization and network where we specialize in trust in academia, families, and organizations. We are building a community of leaders who are interested in trust and culture. If you are interested in our updates, you can sign up for our newsletter at orgsoul.com. As a thank you for joining our community, you can access our free resources that are designed to help you build your brand as a trusted leader as you contribute to safe space. Sign up now at orgsoul.com.
So, welcome back to Evolve. Our guest is business owner and podcaster Michael Dillard. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you, Yvette. Glad to be back.
All right. So, I think my next question for you is really, does you talked about trust being built into the um, what do you call it in the beginning, where they break
Boot
down the
camp.
in boot camp? Yeah, it
Hmm.
gets built into that. But is it really trust or is it really control?
Wow. I would say that is twofold. That's great. I would say I would say that it's a form of control that relies upon an individual's trust. So once the trust is gone, they lose that control.
Mm,
Yeah. So without the trust, there's lack of control. So I would say it's both. I don't know if technically it could be both, but that's how I'm looking at it.
mm, interesting.
Yeah.
Because the military is a command and control model. Um,
Right.
and so it really, are they, you said something earlier that caused me to ask that question. Um, because I got the impression that people are questioning and not trusting, yet they're doing it. So when the
Right.
trust dissipates, um, it seems like they are, now relying on to the fact that, or they're forced to do it because that's their job. That's what I gathered from what you were saying.
Well, I wouldn't say that they're forced, but there is a large amount of leverage that the upper chain of command can impose on someone. I wasn't always like the upstanding guy, right? So in my younger days, I was kind of a bit of a rascal, right? So I would be the guy that would be questioning things. And I think it's kind of normal for people in America from the East Coast, New York, New Jersey. We tend to kind of have a strong sense of self, and
Hmm.
we read people really quickly. And
Hmm.
if we think that you're not for us, we're immediately in arms about it, right? And
Hmm.
so there were many times that I got in trouble in my junior year and my younger years because I didn't necessarily think somebody had my best interests at heart, and I would tell them, and it wasn't always in the nicest of words, but um, I don't know if I'm actually answering the question, going down memory lane, but
It
yeah.
happens to me too. Once I started expanding, I don't even remember where I was. But anyway, one of the things that has come out of the research that I do with my business is that when it comes to trust, people are, I guess, in an emotionally intelligent or emotionally ready state for whatever's going on. So, if there's some stressful dynamics going on in the workplace, they are alert. I guess that's a very good, a better word to use. And so what happens in for-profit workplaces is there's a majority of people that complete the assessments that I offer that end up in an alert state because they are emotionally charged by their environment for whatever reason. They're stressed. Now, what happens there is that something that we call the we disposition is the lowest scoring competency cluster, meaning people are not really working together because they're not feeling safe. They are individuated and individual. Now, like taking that and applying it to the military, right? Uh, the trust serves to bring people together, and you look at it as being dependable because as everyone's so interconnected on a mission that everyone has to depend on the other for their
Right.
skill set. So the question really is, what's really going on? Are they now in an emotionally unsafe space, or and they're working together, but it's not because they trust each other or trust the mission. In this case, it's the overarching mission that may be questionable for them. But they may not trust this. So what does it play? Are they actually working together, or are they just getting the work done because they're a piece of a part of a system, and they just have to do their work?
I don't know that we can actually delineate the military like that.
Mm,
It's very, I mean, it's an organism like any other organisms. I know, like you study systems, right? Um, but it's so interwoven, So I mean, yeah, you could get in trouble. They could bring punishment on you, but for the most part, a lot of the people that join the military they believe in the overall goal of the military. And
mm-hmm.
so there's something internal to them, regardless of whether they can trust the people or not.
A
They
core
still
value.
right. They may still
Mm-hmm.
believe in the mission overall of the military and want to serve that. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
every so many years you shift to a different command, like in the Navy. Okay, based on your job, I was a mechanic. So on a submarine, a mechanic is invaluable. Like you have to be there pretty much longer than everybody else. So that way you know every little part of the sub. So for me, my sea shore rotation, so 5 years on at sea on a submarine attached to that seagoing command, and then 3 years attached to a shore command. So we always knew that there was light at the end of the tunnel, right? Even if you're at a command and you don't trust most of the leadership. One of my leaders on the submarine it was well known he was an alcoholic. He would bring alcohol on the submarine, he'd hide it. The cooks would go on and find the empty bottles in his room. He'd come on the command and he would be drunk. Everybody in the crew knew it. He was an adulterer and everything else. So none of us trusted this man. And we could not wait until either he got transferred or we got transferred to a shore command, because then it's like, okay, I'm so glad I'm not under him because he's going to get everybody killed. Right. So we always knew that there was a way out, you know, even if you don't trust somebody, eventually you can leave because you still believe in the overall mission. So it's not like, hey, I need to get out of the Navy because I didn't trust this commander on this particular platform. I can leave and go to another platform and still carry out my mission because I believe in the overall sense of what we're doing as a military force. If that makes sense.
So really, the mission is the binding factor. Really, it sounds like not trust.
Right. The mission is, but trust adds cohesiveness. It's like the glue, you know, because everyone's level of commitment to the overall mission is not the same, which it is not,
Mhm.
which it is not. Then when the trust erodes, everything starts to crumble, right? And so it really depends. You'll need stronger leaders to step up that believe in the overall mission, that believe in what we're doing, and they're going to be counted on to kind of, and they can use disciplinary actions. I've been on both sides of that whip, so to speak, to make to not to make you do it, but to kind of coerce you into doing it. Because if you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. And I had to process many people off of submarines that didn't want to do it.
Mm.
So they dealt with the punishment, whatever it was, whether it was administrative, oh, we're going to take some money from you, or we're going to take a strike from you, oh, you're going to be restricted to quarters, whatever that was, to try and get them to, kind of do a 180 and change their mind. And if they didn't want to do that, okay, well, it can escalate as high up as it needs to go,
Mhm.
even to a court martial or serving time in prison, right? You can't really make somebody do something. Right?
You can certainly put a ton of pressure on them, though.
Yeah.
That sounds like
And
what
the
is being
military is
done.
really good for that. Look, in my younger days, when I was going to a naval nuclear field A school, I wanted to party all the time. I didn't want to study. So I would get in trouble. And then what they would do to make sure that you stop doing that, they say, well, you know what? We're going to take your weekend away. So what you're going to do on the weekend, you're going to have fashion show. Now, what fashion show was, you basically, all your uniforms that you get when you come in the military, every like hour on the hour, you had to change clothes and muster for like just 5 minutes. They look you up and down and make sure you got all the right things, the uniform. They say, okay, that's good. See you in an hour. But that was fashion show. And it was like your whole day gone, right? So, I mean, they had
Really?
many different creative ways to apply pressure so that you do your job. Yeah.
What? What is
Yeah.
that? Oh wow.
Man,
This
crazy.
is all like a whole new world for me. I'm like a kid in a candy store, this conversation. Anyway, when you were in the Navy, you were responsible for diversity at some point. How did
Yes.
you, I mean, it's morphed into something different than when you were there, but how did
Right.
you build and sustain trust within the context of inclusion and diversity? What were some of
Oh
the
my goodness.
challenges?
The biggest challenge was always initially it was buy-in. It was a two-way street. Like buy-in usually always needs to, I believe, it needs to occur at the top first. Like it's a top-down thing, you know. And when I took over doing that program, it was like they always wanted it to be from the bottom up.
Mm.
And I'd have to say, like, it doesn't work that way, right? We got to buy in at the top. The leadership's got to buy in, and then we can start talking to the rest of the command to change the culture. And then eventually we'll get buy in from the bottom. So that was the hardest thing. So what I did, I was doing a diversity luncheon. So what part of my job is what I would do is I would find like these top people in the field, and the military has money, so I would fly them in, put them up in a hotel, fly them in, and then they would give a talk to our command. And then what I did afterwards was I'd have a luncheon, a diversity luncheon, and I would always put the commanding officer and the executive officer, because they're the one and two in command, right on either side of the guest speaker. So that way, they felt special. They were honored. They got to talk to the bigwig, right? And they loved it. They loved it. But from my level, my peers initially, they didn't want to go. And there are people that wanted to go. They would kind of, like in Hawaii, we say they might give them stink eye. They would kind of force a certain amount of pressure on them to make them feel bad. Like, why are you going there to waste time? You could be doing this work. You could be doing your qualifications. They made it hard for them to go. But like once I got the commanding officer and the XO to buy in,
Uh-huh.
it was pretty much easy then because they use leverage. They put leverage on those my peers to make them go and to make their people go. And then they started liking it. So then I got buy-in from everybody. It was embraced and accepted, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Like literally the programs I was doing, people on other bases, even in different branches, they wanted to emulate that. So I know it worked. It was successful, right? But it was hard at first getting the buy-in. That was the initial challenge. People thought it was nonsense, you know? And in the military, anything that gets you out of work, you're everyone else is working hard and you're going to skip off into a nice air-conditioned office and eat snacks and talk about diversity. We're like, this is nonsense. They call it bagging us. You're bagging us with work, you know? So now there's even more pressure from all your peers because they think you're just trying to get out of work and stiff them with a bunch of extra work, right? So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of dynamics to it.
That's the same elsewhere. As a final question,
Yeah.
if you want to leave the audience with, one piece of advice when it comes to any kind of work, trust in any situation, what would that be?
Wow. I would definitely have to say that I believe that trust it's crucial, right? It's vital. If you're trying to get something accomplished and there's more than just you involved, trust is vital. And I think that we always have to come from that perspective, right? Like you want others to you want others to trust you, but are you trustworthy? So like your actions always, even off the job, whether you're military or you're corporate, what you do really matters. Like your words and your actions, they must line up. Trust just can't be a buzzword.
Hmm.
It just can't, and especially if you're expecting people to follow you. So that's what more succinctly put. If you're in leadership, don't expect people to trust you and don't expect people to follow you if you're not living a trustworthy life. In other words, if you know that your words and your actions don't line up,
Hmm.
then don't expect people to follow you. In the military, they would always tell us um, trust and integrity. That's what they say. Integrity is imagine the commanding officer or the admiral is there watching you do something. Now, would you work differently if the admiral is right there? So it's like you always have to have that mindset. If you're corporate, then what about the CEO was there? And if you're the CEO, hey, somebody that could hold you accountable, right? We just always have to be mindful of that because trust is it's so important and it seems like it's getting less and less important in the world
Yes.
because
Yeah.
integrity is eroding away. It's like people don't care,
Yeah.
they just want money. But it
Yeah.
does matter. It does matter. Even just how you feel about yourself, when you know you're doing the right thing and your words are lining up with your actions, you feel better about yourself. I mean, I know I do. When I wasn't doing that, I felt lousy about myself and I lied
Mhm.
and said I felt good. But then when I really started making sure I walked the walk and talked the talk, I felt stronger as a person. I was whole and, I wasn't all wishy-washy and people can tell that,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
This has been really an intriguing interview, just for me to get a sneak peek into the Navy and how the military works. So your insights will certainly support our audience with building trust. And before we sign off, can you share with us how they can connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. Please just reach out to me on email, Michael.Dillard, that's Dillard at massivekinetics.com. Kinetics I spell with two K's, so it's KINETIKS.
Thank you for listening to Evolve, Reinventing Leadership, Building Freedom Cultures. Learn more about our proprietary trust, leadership, and culture courses and certifications at the IFB Academy. You can check them out at organizationalsoul.learnworlds.com.